You all know what the rock music means. It's the NoOffSeason.com sports card content network. This is Basketball Card Strategy Show, episode 9. I am Paul Hickey with NoOffSeason.com, and I am joined by Darius Garland from Cleveland, Ohio.
Well,
there he is. There's
I got
Darius
my friend
Garland.
Kevin Love with me too. Kevin is here if I need a rebound or 3. So, hey, Paul, how are you, man?
Cavaliers legend. What's up, Gary? This is Gary from Hoops and Cards, of course, joining me as my co-host on the Basketball Card Strategy Show.
Yeah, great to see you, Paul.
You too. All right, so just real quick, we'll get a quick promo out of the way here. I got to ask a question of the audience, and the question is why vault your cards with the original marketplace? Because the eBay vault isn't just a way to protect what you collect. It's a new way to trade. Not only have your cards never been safer thanks to our secure, climate-controlled facility, but you're also locking in real savings. You pay no sales tax when you ship or transact within the vault, and there are no storage fees for 2 years. Now just imagine everything you can do with all that money. And with the eBay Vault's seamless in-app experience, you can track, buy, and sell your cards in real time. From listing your cards in seconds with eBay Collection to tracking trends with eBay Price Guide, managing your collection is more seamless than ever before. The eBay Vault. Buy, sell, secure. And then, of course, Gary, we all know that if you want to get a free year of the premium product at NoOffSeason.com, just email me at paul@nooffseason.com to find out how. And if you're already a member, email me anyway, and I'll hook you up with something good. And I want to talk about hoops and cards with you today. Let's start with the hoops. You've probably watched more NBA basketball this year than I have. Tell me what you've seen so far. Just overall news and notes. What are your first impressions of the NBA season?
Yeah, Paul, I'm one of those guys that's into basketball cards because I'm a fan first, and I do love me some watching basketball. It was hard not to go to a couple Cavaliers games this week. They had their first couple home games, but yeah, I've watched basketball pretty much every day and watched the highlights and watched Cavaliers games and whatever's on ESPN. I haven't broke down and got the NBA League Pass. They have such a great Black Friday deal here for $49. So I'm going to see if I can hold out for maybe that first month free promotion, and then after that month, cancel that and then go for the $49 Black Friday deal. So, I'm always negotiating, but yeah, your question, man, first of all, as a fan, it is just exciting to see the guys do what they do. And Ja Morant is at the top of my list. That game where he had 49 points and the other game where he had 38 and Desmond Bane went off for 38. There's 2 levels of fun there. Number one, they're incredible athletes. Like to see what Ja can do with the ball, and the way he leads the team, the way he attacks the defense, and the way he just explodes to the rim is like money. I mean, it's awesome, but it's also rewarding, as you know, when you've talked about a guy all summer or when you've talked about a player, and then you start to see him actually do what he can, and he's done before. You just want to see him keep doing it. That's like a blast as far as a card investor perspective. So for me, first impressions would be, honestly, I know how much teams are just settling in that first 4 to 6 weeks. And so this from playing fantasy basketball for many years, I know not to get too worked up about one game or 1 week or 2 weeks in November. So I'm not going to be too down on LaMelo Ball. I'm not going to be too high on the Utah Jazz. Like, what is going on? The Utah Jazz can't lose. I mean, we could just do the whole show about Lauri Markkanen and Jordan Clarkson if we wanted. But no, the teams are just getting settled in. I would say the take home would be nice to see some guys healthy that can do what they can do again. Like Damian Lillard, that guy is not that I guess for a while when you don't see a player play for a year, you start to wonder, will he return as the same? Like, are we going to get the slow and old James Harden who is just out there trying to draw fouls and get calls? Or are we going to get the James Harden that can triple-double you and do, his first couple games he was just on fire. So it is great to see some guys back. Kawhi not fully back, Zion back, and then he's not, and then he falls on his butt. Like, I'm not really sure what to do with Zion yet, but yeah, every day seems like a new adventure and a new chapter in the story. And at the same time, as a card investor and collector, for the most part, I'm like this. Like, I'm not in a rush to buy. I'm not in a rush to spend. If I have bought it, I think I bought one card in the last 10 days, which is like I'm starving my card hunger here a little bit. But that one card, I paid less than half of the guy's original asking price. So yeah, as much as I'm excited about the season, Paul, like I'm kind of in waiting mode, because like you, I think the buying opportunities are going to be there for another 8 to 10 weeks. So yeah, just watching the NBA season start to play out. Man, Paolo looks incredible. So what he did to the Cavs last night, and that his averages for 5 games are ahead of where Michael Jordan's were for 5 games. So a lot of good storylines. I'm excited to see you this morning and see where the conversation leads, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I figured you probably saw Paolo, and that's pretty exciting.
Oh yeah, he's incredible. And the thing is, you can't buy his cards yet.
Yeah,
we're sitting around watching select first off the line breaks, and it's like almost November of the next season. So
yeah,
I can't wait to see rookies.
So the thing with that is, I agree. Like, I don't think that any of us should be buying any of those cards yet that are the college uniforms. But there is, I mentioned this on the Sports Card Strategy show a couple episodes ago, is that back during the NCAA tournament, I mentioned to Kendall in March that Panini's release of the instant Duke licensed Paolo autos, sticker autos, were intriguing to me, and that I almost bought one, but they were like $400 or $500, so I was staying away. Well, one sold, I think, for $2,500 or $2,800 according to Slab Stock. So there are plays that can be made with active rookies, even with the pro uniform releases not really coming until the end or after their rookie season.
You got to know where to find them.
Yeah, and then of course,
yourself, you wish you had bought in.
Yeah, and Bowman U Chet cards are interesting to me, because they should be lower than they've ever been or potentially ever will be, and it can take. It's a play. It's not a hold. It's not a stash forever because it's Chet and he could be a legend. It's a quick flip. But it's a timed flip to where you would buy the Bowman U of the player, whether it's Chet, whether it's Jaden Ivey. I don't even know if if Jaden has them. I don't know who has them and who doesn't. I know Chet has them. I don't think Paolo does because of the Panini thing, but because Chet has that card, basically it's a turnkey play, meaning you buy it now while no one's paying attention to Chet, and then you sell it before Chet's first big pro release card comes out. You don't wait until Chet comes back, because by the time Chet comes back, he's going to have pro release cards out that people are going to want more than the Bowman U. So Bowman U auto Chet for a couple $100 is an investment. But I agree. Like, I don't think we should be looking at buying the rookies. I think guys that we should maybe be and I also agree with you that we shouldn't necessarily be looking at buying a whole ton of basketball cards right now. Good morning, Ziggy. Good Ziggy? To see you back on the live stream, Ziggy. Good to see you, man. Hope you're doing well. Sports Card Show chiming in here. We'd love to know your thoughts on some basketball card strategy. If you have questions or comments, chime in here. What I was gonna say though is that I agree that we shouldn't necessarily be buying right now based on what's happening, because we did several episodes leading up to this episode saying now is the time to buy, back in August and September, and even all the way up through mid-October, where you can flip during the hype of this sort of early season run. But one guy that you mentioned in your opening, LaMelo, I'm intrigued by LaMelo from the standpoint of because he is a player who has been on my radar since his rookie season as a longer term investment, meaning someone who can get whatever team he's on potentially to the NBA finals at some point in his career, which is really going to be what drives the pricing up. now could be an interesting time to invest in bigger LaMelo cards, or even like your mid-level LaMelo cards. Just because he's not taking up any of the headlines, he's not in the box score, he's not in the highlights. We don't really know exactly when he's coming back, but we know that it's not a situation where it's going to keep him out longer than probably another month or so. So he's on my radar, and I haven't looked at much data from market movers. If you want to look at data from market movers, go to marketmoversapp.com, use the promo code NOOFFSEASON, get your first month for only $1. Ziggy's probably rolling his eyes at me because I'm throwing money. But anyway, so yeah, what do you think of LaMelo, Gary?
I was about to say the same thing. A good time for a long-term play on higher end LaMelos. That you took the words, man. At the same time, I don't see Charlotte as a playoff team. So if you are going to resell LaMelo, it probably needs to be All-Star break-ish or keep it for a couple years. Like I don't usually like to tie up money for that long, but you're right. Higher end, this could be a great time.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that that buying like a base LaMelo or thinking of him as a quick flip this year is really the right move. I think he's a guy that's like in the conversation of the potential. I mean, he's a tier below the Jaws and the Lucas of the world, but he's not that far. Because he's still got a lot of hype around him. He can put up, he'd be a guy that's capable of putting up a triple double with 40 points. You know what I mean? And when that happens, that's another potential like quick hype spike for cards. But I mean, what's interesting is like I'm toggling through a lot of these different players on market movers right now as we talk, and everyone like not all cards for everyone are up, but like almost when you type in any big name NBA player into market movers right now in the movements section of the app, it's like it's specifically the last 14 days, everyone's up a lot. That's something that I can tell in the data just from a quick view. I know it's not detailed to say everyone's up a lot, but if you put a recognizable superstar-ish name, a number one player on their team name into market movers, even a LaMelo who hasn't played yet because he got injured in the preseason, their cards are up. Slabstock said something about Giannis being down today, but that was one particular card. That's one particular so there are cards that are down, and that's what we help you look at it when you go to nooffseason.com. We help you look at what cards are down so you can make plays on those cards related to the players. But this leads me into a question, Gary. If everyone generally is up, are there players that you are looking to sell right now, even in this early point in the season? Like are there guys where you're looking at it and you're like, you know what, this can't continue, I think I'm going to go ahead and move him right now?
Yeah, the cards I feel that way about selling, Paul, and it is encouraging to hear you say the movement showing that a lot of players are up. Like the market, people are coming back to basketball, right? And aware of the stars, aware of each team and each market. Now I'm selling the cards that I know what I paid for them, and I know to sell them now brings me some money profit I can use on other cards that are down. So it's a little bit more subjective than to say, hey, here's the 3 players I'm selling. Yep. I'm selling the guys that okay, I'll give you for instance, I had a Desmond Bane Silver Prism rookie that I thought looked well-centered. I got it at a show in a trade, sent it to PSA, came back as a 10. Yay. Like three weeks later, I got it as a 10. The raw card is $40. The PSA 10 is $250. I had to sell it. Like I had to sell it now, even though I believe Desmond Bane cards are going to go up. I just felt like, man, I paid 40 and then 18 to grade it. I got a chance to get $250. I got to do it because I know what else I'm looking at and what kind of deals I'm getting on other players. And yeah, I mean, could I have waited a couple weeks and sold that thing for, some people are paying $300 for Desmond Bane Silvers? Yes, but my hope is to go do it again. Like go to the show on Saturday, buy another Desmond Bane Silver or Tyrese Haliburton or Tyrese Maxey or any one of 15 players I could name right now, looking at, is it centered? Is it scratched up? Like, does it look clean? And the possibility of getting that graded and flipping again. So that was, and then there's other cards I'm holding on to because they didn't score a 10, but yeah, I'm selling cards that I know I can make a profit on now.
I love that. And so two things. One, everybody needs to go back, hit the little 15-second rewind on your podcast app or on YouTube and listen to what Gary said again, because I've never done this in person with Gary. I look forward to doing it with him one day at a card show, but he seems to be masterful at going to card shows, finding raw cards like this, and then knowing what the play is with them. Now that grading has been open at PSA and actually pretty fast for the last several months, and inexpensive at the bulk level and economy level, that he knows what the play is, whether it's to grade it or to flip it raw. And I think that the card show to potentially grading more likely than not to grading than to eBay move is a phenomenal move right now. I'm doing that on a larger scale with one particular card that I bought at the National that came back at 10. This is a Jordan Poole 2019 Contenders rookie ticket auto. That's like a premium variation. It's not serial numbered, but it's a short print. And it came back at 10. I didn't get the auto graded because I didn't think this is... Let me know what you think in the comments of this move, because I know some people probably have some heavy opinions on it, and then other people probably agree with me that it's not that big of a deal. I didn't think the auto was going to get a 10, so I didn't get the auto graded. It would have cost me more money to get the auto graded. It would have been a whole separate submission. So I just submitted it at the bulk $18 a card level with a bunch of other cards, didn't get the auto graded, came back at 10, but it's obviously an auto, a Panini authentic auto. So I was like $318 all in for the card. It just sold on eBay. The buyer hasn't paid yet. So hopefully that can be my win of the week on Monday, or we're going to do the Sports Card Strategy show on Tuesday, Kendall and I. Hopefully my win of the week will be that the buyer actually paid for it, but it sold for over $1,400. So this would be basically $1,000 profit. And that is me doing what you're saying. Yeah. I know I can profit on this card right now because it's a player. It's a desirable player, a highly desirable card. There's a play in it for someone else who's buying it, meaning if the huge market of people thinking that Golden State's, going to make it far, potentially win it again. Huge market for Jordan Poole. I don't love Jordan Poole. I was in it. I'm kind of in it to make money anyway with this particular card. So why not list it at the beginning of the NBA season, knowing I can make a profit off of it? And if the buyer pays, I think we both got a good deal, because I still think there's upside in that card, but I'm not going to wait around for the upside when then there's more downside if something were to happen to Jordan Poole, or if the Warriors were to potentially not go as far. So another side of that is like, my answer to my own question is who would I sell now? I dug in deep based on your analysis, because I think you're absolutely right. It depends on the card. It depends on the entire scenario, not just the player. The player and the card.
This is another one. See this Anfernee Simons?
Is it Simons? Yeah.
Hollow. This got a 10. This got a 10, and I think I paid $15 for it at a show. And I love Anfernee Simons. I would not say sell your Anfernee Simons. I'm buying Anfernee Simons, but this card, like right now, I can get more than $200 on eBay. I've got a bunch of watchers. I might send offers, but I just put it up yesterday. Simons is a great young player who I'm buying, but this card, right? It's another example. I'm not saying that it works that way every time, but when I'm able to see a card in person and look at it in different angles and scrutinize it, and I'll admit, Paul, I'm not great at that. I actually, when I'm at a show, I'll go to my friend Brett or my friend John, and I'll say, hey, take a look at this card with me. Like, should I pour it? Not a $10 card. I'm not going to run into Brett every time, but like if it's a possibility that I'm going to send it in for grading, I get one or two other eyes on it and say, before I splurge, because I want to find those cards that I can do this with. Yeah,
I love that, man. That's something I look forward to doing a lot more of when we're back in the United States in December, and looking forward to going to a bunch of card shows. I'm actually going to the London card show this Saturday with my son. So we're going to the NFL game, Broncos and Jags, and we're going to go to the London card show. So on next week's show of the Sports Card Strategy show, I should have an update on the London card show. But here's another example for everybody out there. So this is probably going to be like a dagger to your heart. But to me, Donovan Mitchell is a guy that you should be looking at. What cards of Donovan Mitchell do you have right now, everybody? And are they cards that are desirable enough to sell right now for a profit? Because like, for example, his 2017 Prism, Gary just left the show. Gary left the show. I think it was because I mentioned to sell Donovan Mitchell and he got mad at me. I'm not sure what happened. Oh, he's back. There we go. Gary, you left the show. I thought, were you mad at me because of the Donovan Mitchell thing?
I was. Can you hear me okay right now?
Yeah.
You said dagger and I was like, I'm out. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know what happened. My web browser had an allergic reaction to your Donovan Mitchell take.
That was perfect timing because I was able to just tell the audience,
what did I miss?
The show but now he's back. He's mad at me because Donovan Mitchell. But Donovan Mitchell's over the last 14 days. So this is an example of the hype spike of the beginning of the NBA season that Gary and I are talking about. Hey, VJ Patel, good to see you, my man. This is an example of the hype spike. So Donovan Mitchell's 2017 Prism Silver in BGS 9.5 14 days ago was selling for $200. Now it's selling for $273. So you can make $73 in theory, a 36.4% profit margin in he's playing well,
right?
Which is part of the reason why the card's gone up. The other part of the reason is it's like his first few games in a Cavs uniform at the beginning of the NBA season. So the stars are aligning for a guy who is completely in no man's land about 6 to 8 months ago. And previous to that, for like a couple years.
I thought you were calling Cleveland no man's land. I thought that's what was happening.
No, Utah okay. In that whole situation.
Oh, yeah.
But my point is Garland's going to come back. These numbers aren't going to always be that way for Mitchell. Yes, he's going to be this good, but no, there's not going to be as much interest in his cards moving forward as there is right now, unless Cleveland wins the NBA Finals, which I hope happens, especially for your sake, Gary. But that's the odds are against that. So if I'm holding Donovan Mitchell cards right now, in the realm of that Prism Silver 2017, anything like that, if it's a 2017 Optic Hollow, PSA 10, any of those kinds of cards, those are all that's the Colin Sexton example, or sorry, that's the Anfernee Simons example that you just held up. It's the same thing. Mitchell's a better player, but it's the same concept.
Yeah.
So that's my thoughts. What do you think?
Can you hear me okay, by the way, Paul?
I can hear you phenomenally.
All right, good. Yeah, the thing about Mitchell, you're right. With Garland out, he has taken on more of the offense and put up 30 plus in just about every game. And I don't know if that's going to get him some early MVP talk. That's not me in the Cleveland hype machine talking. Like he has that kind of talent, but you're right. With Garland coming back anytime soon, maybe now's a good time to sell on that first 14-day jump that you're talking about. And I might be buying because I love him. Like it'll be a piece.
There you go. Gary's part of the market that's going to buy him. So that's great. I mean, that's why this thing works, because you've got people like me that are playing it like fantasy basketball and flipping, like a mix of fantasy basketball and FanDuel, DraftKings, and kind of looking at what they think is going to happen and kind of being unemotionally attached. I'm not really collecting, right? So Gary is an investor and collector. So is Kendall. So is Andy. A lot of the other people on the part of the nooffseason.com family here. So because that's the case, that's why we're able to flip cards, because you've got guys like Gary who are going to invest in Mitchell, maybe more from an emotional standpoint. But I know you're probably saying you also like him as an investment too. So speaking of fantasy basketball, last year when I launched nooffseason.com's premium sports card investment report, which again, you can get free for a year if you email me at paul@nooffseason.com. This is over 300 player profiles across all sports, in-depth analysis of their cards, which cards to buy, which cards to avoid, basically how to make money on each player, a lot of timing analysis as well. But I'm a basketball guy. And so when I first launched nooffseason.com, I was very confident about some sleepers that would eventually play out. Now, what I didn't realize necessarily at the time when I wrote about their cards was that it may not necessarily result in spikes in their card prices, but Garland was one of them, of course, but three lesser known names. One was Gary Trent Jr., another was DeAndre Hunter, and a third was Kenyon Martin Jr., who, even though he plays for the Rockets and they're horrible record-wise right now, he's actually a really freaking good player. And it's just what I want to know is, Gary, your take on this. Was I too early on these guys? Are they going to potentially still have cards that are really valuable based on their profiles on the court? Like, do they have a ceiling related to card value, or are these three guys that had kind of missed the cut, so to speak, of cards and just fall into the, hey, cool, Paul, you made a good call on some guys that got better as NBA players. You might have helped some people's fantasy basketball teams, but you didn't necessarily help them make money in cards.
Right. What were the three guys again? I know Kenyon Martin.
Yeah, Jr. Gary Trent Jr., Kenyon Martin Jr., and DeAndre Hunter were three of my guys, in addition to Garland, who we both agree is a stud. But specifically those three guys, do you see any possibility of any of the people making money on their cards based on their performance?
Yeah. Absolutely. There's potential there. Those are guys that when, like Gary Trent did last night, when they have the opportunity, they can erupt. They can score in bunches. All three of them. They're fun to watch. They play offense and defense. Like you just named three of the most complete wing players in the league. Kenyon Martin is a beast on defense. Alley-oops and dunks, like he's incredible. He can shoot threes. The question I'm going to say about all three of those guys, Paul, is the teams they are on have a number of other guys in their age range that at times steal shots or minutes, spotlight starting roles from those guys. So like with Toronto, it's kind of an enigma for me because they've got like 5 interchangeable parts of guys that can lead the team in scoring on any given night or any given month. They've got Van Vliet. They've got OG Anunoby back. They've got Pascal Siakam, who looks like an MVP candidate already. They've got Gary Trent Jr., Scotty Barnes, Precious Achiuwa. And so like, not that Gary Trent still can't make you money. It's just, it's going to be harder for him to stand out on that team in Toronto. Same deal with DeAndre Hunter, right? They just added DeJounte Murray. Trae Young is the man, and his cards are undervalued there. You've got John Collins, who he can be kind of a ball hog, and I don't know how it's amazing that they've kept him this long, but he can score. Onyeka Okongwu is a young big that they want to build around. He's a double-double machine. So Atlanta, DeAndre, I mean, he's a tease to me because there have been weeks where I'm like, this is the guy to get. Like, look at this week. He averaged in the playoffs. He had a week where like 4 games in a row, he averaged like close to 25 points a game. And I'm like, crap, I should buy back all those DeAndre Hunters I sold. So he has the potential. And Kenyon Martin the third, or Kenyon Martin Jr., whatever he is, he doesn't look like a starter in Houston. And that's a challenge for me because I'm seeing they love Alperen Şengün and 15 and 10 every night. And he plays like 19 minutes. He just comes in and produces. Jabari Smith, another big that they counted on to score. Jalen Green is one of those rookies where I'm like, shoot, if I don't get a good center Jalen Green prism this weekend, I failed as a basketball fan and as a human being. Yep. Kevin Porter Jr., to me, if I'm looking at Houston, he's the guy that everybody's written off card-wise, but he's playing like a monster, averaging 22 a game and 5 or 6 assists, 5 or 6 boards, good percentages. He even shaved his head. I don't know if you've seen this, like the Kevin Porter Jr. explodes haircut is now like he's got mentors in his life helping him like stabilize. He could be, the next all-star in Houston. So I like the guys you mentioned. I think you picked well, and there's still some bargains. Like those are some guys that as I go to the card show this weekend, I'm going to look in the $1 or $2 box. I'll find some of the guys I mentioned, but I'll also find the guys you mentioned, and those could be value plays. Like I'd say, keep them in mind, but don't expect them to take over the city where they're at.
Yeah, that's a great analysis. I think you'd have to find autos in good condition of those guys for super cheap to pull a trigger on a potential play. But this actually, your answer made me want to segue right into another question I had for you, another topic, which is what I'm doing is narrowing my focus related to who I'm buying so that I'm not holding a bunch of different kinds of guys at one, because this is kind of goes to an investing strategy, right? So you mentioned in your response to the last question, the premise that, you have a super deep team like Toronto and Atlanta, for example. There's a lot of teams that are deep like that. Even though that's great for basketball and it's great for fantasy basketball, it's risky for cards. It inserts a risk that I don't think sports card investors always notice. And that is, the more you spread yourself thin, what you're actually doing is increasing the chances for you to lose, right? So, and that's kind of what I did my first year of buying a bunch of basketball cards. I wanted to get in on a bunch of different guys because I was super excited. This guy might blow up. This guy might blow up. I like this guy. He's cool. I'd watch a game and be like, oh, I want to try to him. What you're doing is you're basically just decreasing your chances. You're increasing your chances for losses is what you're doing. At the same time that you're increasing your chances for wins, it's actually more likely that you're going to lose than that you're going to win. And so what I've started to do is narrow my focus down to maybe really like 5 guys that I want to buy, like 4, maybe 5 guys that I would buy. And so it's a pretty exclusive list, and like, not surprisingly, like they're at or near the top of my list on nooffseason.com for basketball cards. But, do you have a buying strategy that's similar to that you're activating, or what? I'll tell you what mine is in a second, like who my guys are. But what's your current buying strategy? Is it narrow, or is it sort of like on in terms of players, or is it kind of what you were saying earlier, where it just depends on the card? Like if you can put together a formula on the card, it might not necessarily be the player. It could be partially the player, partially the card with a play that you want to make, or are you more exclusive to just like, I don't want to hold all these different kind of guys for a number of days or weeks during the year. I just want to be exclusive to particular players.
Yeah, great question, Paul. One of the things about fantasy basketball too is your team winds up being 10 or 12 players that you're paying attention to throughout the season and paying attention to their production. And some of them are guys you like, and some of them are guys that you just know produce. They do all the things. And for me, I would say my card buying focus has been I have 3 guys right now that I love as players and following them. And that's part of my PC, but I also want to invest wisely with my PC money. So I have my 3 guys that way right now are LeBron James, Darius Garland, and Tyrese Maxey. Those are my 3 that I'm like, if I'm looking at players, and I have so many of their cards now, like for a while I was just buying base, a bunch of everything just to have LeBrons and just to have Darius. Now I am being a lot more selective and leveling up in those cards. But to answer more of your question, I do have, as you were asking the question, I was writing down names that I think they're more investment related for me and they're fun for me, but they all have several things in common. I major on guys who can lead their teams, can score 20 plus. They initiate the offense. They can handle the ball. I think they're all 3-level scorers, meaning they can shoot threes or drive to the lane and dunk on your face, which makes them talented and hard to stop for a defense and fun to watch if you're on SportsCenter. So I've got 6 guys if you just want me to rip through them.
Yeah, that's great. That's perfect.
Okay, each one of these, I've got a card or 2 or 3, and none of them are big news, but there's a couple guys that I'm just focusing on. One, okay, Ja Morant is obvious. Anthony Edwards is obvious, and it's nice to see him erupt like he did last night. Had a great game. But these other 4, a guy actually in the last 7 or 8 days that stands out to me as a great deal, underappreciated, and buying opportunity when it comes to just the PSA 10 base cards is Brandon Ingram. I think the Pelicans are a potential playoff team with all the weapons they have back, and CJ McCollum now, and Zion hopefully healthy. But even if he's not, Brandon Ingram is like a 25-point triple-double waiting to happen. anytime, and he had an awesome playoff series. So I like him a lot. And I just bought a PSA 10 Prism base of his, went back and forth on one of those buy it now or best offer sales on eBay, and ended up getting the card for like, I think it was $15 or $20 under the lowest recent comp. And I was like, okay, I have to spend on that. Even though I'm not buying, I'll buy that. So Ingram is high on my list right now. The other three guys are players that I've actually done. In May, I was doing articles about on hoopsandcards.com and saying this guy is like an NBA star, but a card sleeper. And those three guys, just three S's. So Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, that's one. I don't see playoffs in their future, but I do see what he's doing, and this should be his first year as an all-star. I think people are excited and paying attention to Oklahoma City with all the young prospects, but I don't expect him to be a playoff prophet, and I don't mind keeping SGAs long-term. Second S is Anfernee Simons, and absolutely love him. I think it's taken a few games for him to figure out, okay, how do I play off the ball? How do I play, when I'm not the focal point of the offense? Because last year he had the offense to himself for a while without Lillard. But Simon's cards they're getting hotter. It's getting harder to find cheap Anfernee Simons cards because he can be everything that you need on the court with a scoring guard. And then the third guy is Pascal Siakam, and I've always loved his game. I've always been fascinated with his background coming from Cameroon, but they run the offense through him, and he's one of those guys last year when I was watching the Rookie of the Year chase and Evan Mobley and Scotty Barnes, and every night I would check the scores or watch the highlights and see Scotty Barnes had, 15 and 10, but Siakam had 38 and 8. And he's already continuing that this year. Siakam looks, I don't know if you've seen any of this stuff, but he's a blast, man. He can do it all. He's in his prime or entering his prime. And like we said about Toronto, all those weapons, they look like a deep run playoff team. They just ran Philly out of the gym again last night, but Siakam is at the center of that. And, what I said about Toronto, on any given night, one of these guys can erupt. It seems like Pascal is the constant. Like last night, 13 assists, even though Trent Jr. led in scoring, Siakam was leading the team. And card wise, nobody cares. Like his cards are dirt cheap right now. So I'm buying.
Love that. That's a great list, and good analysis there too.
But you tell me, man, am I wrong on Siakam? Like, why is he? I mean, people know his name. He's a champion. He's a 3-time All-Star.
I like your levels, and I think you're right to have. I think it's for any disciplined sports card investor that's going to make money based on their analysis and their execution and their discipline. I think it's right to have excitement, but to have your excitement be at the level of like the sleeper investment. So he's like your third level sleeper. And so a couple years ago, I used to be more like all level 3 people, like just putting all of my money in a bunch of sleepers. And so now, no, I think, so I don't know if I would agree that I would put my money into Siakam as a sleeper, but I agree. But I like your logic of having him in that tier. And I think everyone listening and watching should have their own version of that. They should, what I would encourage everybody to do is to put most of your money, most of your sports card investment budget money, that is, to be very clear, into top level guys. So for me, mine's similar to Gary, but just a little bit of overlap. But Anthony Edwards, Giannis, Ja are my top level, and then I more have so I'm kind of top level loaded. But then the next level down, I think, is a little bit more calculated sleeper. Like it's Cade and LaMelo would be my next level down. So again, level 1, Anthony Edwards, Giannis, and Ja. Pretty obvious guys there that just make a ton of sense to put money into because they're going to always be liquid. And they have like unlimited upside, as much upside as anybody else. Next level down, Cade and LaMelo, just because I think they are also super liquid, with probably more upside unrealized to this point, but probably just as much upside. So if we were to visualize this in a chart, It would be like they have the biggest sort of ceiling, quote unquote, just because they have the most unrealized upside. Whereas like Giannis has already realized a lot of his upside. So there's stuff baked in. Ja, to a certain extent, has dollars baked in as well. And I think Anthony Edwards, even though his team's never really done anything significant, I think because the whole card world noticed over the last 18 months how legit and electric he is. I do think there's a little bit baked into Anthony Edwards, but the good news is with all three of those guys, when their team does win, there's going to be a substantial, not only spike, but probably a significant like lasting effect on their card value, not just a spike. So like a actual plateau higher than where they are now. But then I have a super sleeper level also, where I'm looking at like, can I get this guy's centered base prism for like $1? Can I get his silver prism centered for $10, $15? And that's Zaire Williams. And to me, that's just, it falls in like this might be a DeAndre Hunter mistake again, all over again. But as long as I don't spend that much money on Zaire Williams, it's more just for fun, because I just think he's the type of player that could explode in the NBA from a profile standpoint. 10th overall pick, 6'9", plays 4 different positions. The risk is that he's not the number 1 or the number 2 on his team. At best, he's the number 3. He's probably more likely the number 6, 7, or 8 right now. So I'm not going to put too much money into Zaire Williams, but just for the sheer fact of like, I need to have some kind of super sleeper to hang my hat on and to buy cards of. I like him. And then I look at everybody else too. Like you mentioned Jalen Green, right?
Yeah.
There's obviously like a lot of other Jalen Green type players that I'm looking at. You mentioned Tyrese Maxey, you like him. So it's hard not to look at those guys and want to buy their cards. I like Jonathan Kuminga. I know you don't. But like, I'm not buying them. I'm only going to actually buy Edwards, Giannis, Ja, Cade, LaMelo, Zaire. So very exclusive 6 people on my list. That's what I'm rolling out these days.
Hey, Paul, can I add what I was saying, my list of 6 there, and I realized I talked for quite a while when you asked me that question. I'm like, hey, LeBron, and I went through 10 other guys. Giannis is one of my core 4 or 5 players that I'm buying. My deal with him is I've already bought a bunch of Giannis in the last 2 months. So I'm like,
good for you.
I'm good on Giannis. And the Siakam play, I'm only in for like, right now I've only spent $40 on Siakam cards. So I've got 1 card, but I'm intrigued by the, seeing the way a guy plays and performs as an all-star. It's sort of my Siakam experiment. What is the card market going to take notice of this season, if anything? If they don't, I don't care. I got a great card that I like. But I was curious what you think about Brandon Ingram, because the Pelicans look better.
Yeah, I like your Brandon Ingram call. I saw your Instagram post, and what a great deal. It was listed for, this is a great example. So Gary, for those of you, go to Instagram Hoops and Cards. He's got a great post where he basically, his point is like, this was a buy it now, I think listed for $120. Gary got it for like 60.
I should have waited till it arrives in the mail to flex about it, but it was a good deal.
That's you did what I think everybody should do, is when you find a card on eBay that you want to buy, and it's a buy it now or best offer, you should offer half of the listing just to start. It might automatically decline it, but it's worth trying it. If it automatically declines it, you kind of know that seller is looking for a particular price, and then you got to determine what you want to do from there. But I would start with half. Gary, I love Brandon Ingram. Short answer, I love Brandon Ingram. To me, I'm trying to stay disciplined, like reminding myself, if you buy everyone that you like, you're not going to accomplish your own personal goal, Paul, which is actually make money on
Exactly.
investing in sports cards.
You're not
I will
starting
have
the
a lot of
Brandon Ingram
fun,
fan
but
club. You're trying to like put food on the table and
I'm not trying to
buy
get
mother
bragging
cards.
rights about Brandon Ingram. I'm trying to.
Well, and can I say too, like that Brandon Ingram buy came from, I did maybe 20 minutes of market mover research on Brandon Ingram and 3 or 4 other players, Jaylen Brown being one, Siakam being another, but basically zeroed in on Ingram and then compared 6 different Brandon Ingram cards, and I saw which cards were selling most frequently, which grades and which parallels, and it seemed like the base PSA 10 was the most liquid. There were the most sales in the last 3 months of PSA 10 Prisms. I know it's not rocket science, but I want a card that I can flip if I need to, and I saw that the range of a 10 up and down there was far more room to buy and sell than there was on a PSA 9 or even on a silver of Brandon Ingram. So I'm like, all right, I knew the range going into that, basically going into buying a Brandon Ingram PSA 10, I knew the range was going to be between $70 and $120 on a base PSA 10, because people hear PSA 10, some of them are willing to pay top dollar to get that perfect card and have it. Just buy it now, be done with it. Others are winning an auction at 4 a.m. in Guam, and they get a steal on the card. I was like, all right, I know what my range is. Here's a guy that has a $119 or best offer. Right now I'm just going to offer him 50 because, again, I know what the range is, 70 to 120. I'm in charge right now. It's buying season, cash is king. So I'm like, I'm just going to throw an offer out there and see how far he comes down. I offered 50. He came down to 85, and I was like, dude, we're talking. I might even go up to 85 and pay it. So I counter offered at 60, and the guy accepted. And I'm like, okay, either the stock market just crashed today and I didn't, or the guy needed to sell and get some cash, and he's got a better card he wants to buy for $60. Like, I don't know, maybe he has $5 in the card, right? But all that to say, market movers helped me nail down that's the card I want to get, and I got a good deal on it. I was lucky that day.
Gary, that's a phenomenal exercise that everybody should partake in. Everybody listening, again, rewind it back, hit that 15
market
second
movers,
button
baby,
3 or 4 times. Gary, do you have a promo code at Market Movers that we could throw out yet? I know you're working on an affiliate.
I do, but this is your show, Paul. Let's go with the no off season code.
Okay,
you're the man. It's your time.
Thanks, Gary. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
No off season is the code. It'll give you your first month for only $1 at marketmoversapp.com. So check it out. And if you want to support Gary, go to hoopsandcards.com, subscribe to Hoops Plus, and listen to Hoops and Cards on Apple, Spotify, and everywhere else you get your podcast. Okay, Gary, speaking of market movers, I got one more question before we wrap up the show. So when you go to the deals tab on market movers, there's this is interesting because I like what you did with Brandon Ingram and Jaylen Brown in your analysis. But if you don't want to do as deep of an analysis as Gary just described, and if you're not as big of a data geek as I am, and you just want to know, like, how can I, like, what's the easiest way to understand, like, what's a good buy? Most of the time, you can find at least a couple cards on the deals tab. And I'm looking at 2 right now. I sorted it by basketball because this is the basketball card strategy show. So I put basketball in on the deals tab, and there's 2 that are standing out for me. One is a Josh Giddey 2021 Prism Purple Wave PSA 10. It says it's a pop 10.
Wow.
This is down 25% from its last sale. So the way that this works is there's a buy it now price of $300. The current price that it most recently sold for was $400. So there's a $100 profit margin in there, hence the $25% profit margin, $100 profit margin. Then if you scroll down a little further, there's a Desmond Bane 2020 Prism Fast Break PSA 10.
Yes, sir.
Top 8. This is basically the same thing. It's $125 profit margin, buy it now price of $385. Compared to current price, it's down 25%, meaning it last sold for $510. What's interesting about this to me is you got to compare 2 things. First of all, to make the same amount of money, basically, you have to pay more for the Desmond Bane, a little bit more, $85 more to make. You got to pay $85 more to make $25 more than if you were to try to flip the Giddey. My question to you is, of these two, this is a little mini gauntlet. It's a would you rather here on the Basketball Card Strategy Show. Would you rather buy this Bane as a flip or the Giddey as a flip?
You're asking me. This wasn't a hypothetical for our
This is a question
listeners.
For you. A question
all of
for
our
you. Well,
listeners.
hey, listeners, comment. Let us know what you think. But Gary, what do you think?
It's hard for me even to, as a basketball fan and investor speculator, it's hard for me to say no to Desmond Bane. So I'm not going to do it. Giddey is awesome, young, and can do a variety of things. But Bane's on a playoff team, and he can create his own shot and get 30 anytime he wants. So I think he's got the chance to be the Pippen to Jaws Jordan, if that's a thing. I know we're early.
I love it.
I know we're
what
early.
Do you guys think? What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments. And if you're listening on Apple and Spotify, tweet at No Offseason Card and check out Sports Card Strategy on Instagram. Gary's Hoops and Cards on Instagram. Is that correct?
Yep. At Hoops and Cards.
Your Twitter handle is like
at cards_hoops, which makes it harder to find. Somebody already had Hoops and Cards. If you have it, please contact me. I'd love to trade you some cards for that Twitter name. But yeah, I just want to apologize to Desmond and Tyrese for leaving you off the list. Haliburton, you are a stud. You are the man. And it's hard for me. You're a Detroit guy, Paul. So it's hard for me to get worked up about Cade when you've got other great players like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Tyrese Haliburton who are doing a lot of the same things on non-playoff teams, just like Cade is. I think it'll be fun to see those teams grow and they have future playoffs, in 3 or 4 years. What's your take on Cade? Is it you're a Detroit guy and he's the number one pick?
I think it's more that he's the number one pick than it is that I'm a Detroit guy. But I believe that I like I like his profile as an NBA player. As what I mean by that is I like him as the leader of a team, the face of a franchise. I see him potentially spending his whole career in Detroit. You don't see that very much anymore. We hope we see it with guys like Ja in Memphis and other guys around the league. But I think Cade is going to be a guy that has more upside than an SGA. I see SGA as a guy that is maybe more upside as a scorer, maybe more upside as a flashier type of highlight reel guy, but
Agreed.
Not necessarily as the face of a franchise. So I think it's rare that you would get it's almost like whoever Detroit drafts or acquires from here on out, it's still Cade is the guy, the Isaiah Thomas, if you will. It didn't matter who else Detroit had in that era. It was always Isaiah's team, and I kind of see Cade as that. And that's the best Pistons analogy. There's better. You could say the same about Magic and the Lakers and things like that. That's kind of why Cade over some of those other guys. But I could see Tyrese Haliburton being in the conversation. Less about SGA. I could see Tyrese. Tyrese is starting to win me over. A couple episodes ago, I was down on Tyrese. I might come around on him. We'll see. I've been known to admit when I'm wrong.
Wait,
Chad Gill says he's Chad, what's up, man? Thanks for watching. He says Bane. And then Memphis, way better team, which is important to liquidity. Yeah, that's a good point. I think that's probably part of the reason why Gary was picking Bane.
And Paul, can I expand on that too? It's not, a better team. Certainly they're on TV a lot more, but also you have a selling opportunity then in May and June if they advance, a long way in the playoffs. You have a selling opportunity with Bane that you might not have with Giddey, at least not this season.
Absolutely, Giddey could get lost. Giddey could be a flash in the pan. Whereas Bane actually seems to have won everybody over to the point where he's probably not going anywhere, both from an NBA standpoint and from a card standpoint. So I hope I'm right about Cade. I really do think that's a guy that's going to have more and more fans come his way as more and more people get to see him play, and as the Pistons win more. Jaden Ivey is going to be their Ja Light in Detroit. So Cade's going to have a lot of supporting cast that will help him get attention, but I think ultimately he's still going to be the guy there, regardless of who else.
What's your take on adding Bogdanovich to the mix? Like, I love who he is as a player and what he adds to the team, and at the same time, he's taking shots and development away from Sadiq Bey and Jaden Ivey. I don't understand that. Even though you got a steal getting him, right? Were they just saying let's go for the playoffs now, or what's the?
I mean, I think you make a good point, but I think like so Sadiq and Jaden, there's still more than enough minutes for those guys. And like if they weren't getting the minutes, I'd be saying the same thing. I'd be like, why did we do this? But I think you want to compete. There's a cultural effect to tanking and losing too much. And the Pistons, ever since this is going to sound really conceited, but sometimes I kind of like to say things like this just for fun. Ever since I left the franchise, they really have sucked. They really have sucked ever since I left. I left in 2007.
That cultural leadership right there.
Check the record book. Ever since I left 2007, the Pistons have sucked. And so that's 15 years of sucking. And so they don't need to suck anymore. So they get Bogdanovich, who can help them actually win some games. They got him, like, to your point, they didn't have to give up anything to get him. They didn't hurt their future development from an asset standpoint to go get him. So
no, and I'm probably just jealous because he would have fit in perfectly in Cleveland, where a 3-man who can nail shots like he can and is just a solid veteran. That would have been, oh my gosh, I can't believe you got him so cheap. But no, you're absolutely right. And about the veteran that sets the tone for these young lottery picks, like Cleveland have Kevin Love, has been priceless in that locker room. So having a Bogdan or Bojan or Bogdan, I get him mixed up. It's Bogdanovich.
Is it? Yeah, it's Bogdanovich. I think it's Bojan.
Bojan, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see what Dwayne Casey can do. I'm rooting for everybody. Rooting for everybody there in the Pistons organization. And he has a contract extension last year, so hopefully he'll earn that. But yeah, great show. Anything else you want to add, Gary, before we sign off for the Basketball Card Strategy show?
Yeah. As far as you went your super sleeper. Who was the guy you mentioned again? Your deep sleeper guy?
Zaire Williams.
Okay, thank you. Zaire Williams. One of the things I'm doing this weekend and probably for the next few shows that I'm at, and by the way, I probably have more like you would say, I want to buy everything that I see sometimes, or every player. That happens to me because I see cards in person at shows like you're going to see in London. You might not go to the show thinking I'm going to buy a Steph Curry rookie, but if you see a steal on one, or if you see options on cards where you're like, I can't believe, how cheap this, whatever it is, Chet Holmgren, auto, like you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm willing to go off my plan to get deals. One of those is to go through the $1 box, $2, or the autograph and relic box and find guys like Zaire Williams and find. I wrote down 3 guys. Alperen Şengün is one. Second one, actually he would be third on this list. Trey Mann and Trey Murphy. Both of those guys are getting more playing time and shooting and scoring in bunches. I'd probably add Jalen Noel as another that you can find in cheap boxes still and say, I can't believe I got this player who, when they get the opportunity and at their age, it's only a matter of time. Like, I don't know if you've seen what Trey Murphy's done for the Pelicans, but Trey Mann may be part of the reason I don't love Giddey as much, because I'm seeing he gets a bunch of threes and he winds up being the 15 to 20 point a night guy alongside Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yeah, that's good points. I love, this is why I love creating content with you, because you're bringing up so many good points about other deep sleepers that I think.
And I'm rooting for Cam Thomas. Like, Cam Thomas is our dude, right? He hasn't gotten off the bench much. I'm like, what are you doing, Brooklyn? No wonder you're losing. You're rejecting Paul's advice. Play Cam Thomas.
Play Cam Thomas. Everybody,
free Cam Thomas.
Free Cam Thomas. Everybody, Everybody just be patient. Just go buy, just keep buying Cam Thomas. He's at an all-time low right
That's
now.
right. Bones Highland too. Get in it.
Yeah, go get Bones. Bones hasn't really exploded, and I still like him.
Me too.
All right, good stuff. Great sleepers. Everybody, let us know what you think of the show. Comment, ask us questions, email paul@nooffseason.com, Gary@hoopsandcards.com, and we'd love to hear from you. And thanks again for watching and listening. Paul Hickey, he's Gary with Hoops and Cards. Everybody have a great day. There's a
baby.
And if Kendall were here, he would say something along the lines of, cue the rock music.
Boom. Love the rock music. Is that you on guitar, Paul?
Love the rock music. Yeah, I wish.